It has been a very long time since the New York Knicks have made the NBA playoffs, and right now they are pretty much back in the saddle in a very unusual Eastern Conference and in a very unusual year, especially the shortened season going from the normal 82 to minus 10 games to 72. And here with me to discuss the Knicks and their resurgence and their return to the playoffs is longtime Knicks fan and, of course, 15-time Sports Jeopardy champion, Vinny Varadarajan. Vinny, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm hoping that my interview skills are getting up there to like Dan Patrick's, but I don't know. And I think that's going to take a little while because I have not gone to Full Sail University.
Man, you should get Dan Patrick to sponsor your podcast. I think that'd be perfect. I'm excited. We're like the cicadas. Knicks fans come out every 17 years, so into the playoffs. So very excited about this.
How did you become a Knicks fan? I know that, especially in the time before the Nets left New York and then came back, it was pretty much a one-team town, so I'm assuming that you had to be born and bred a Knicks fan.
Yeah, a couple things that worked out. One, I started watching basketball. As long as I can remember, I started watching Knicks games when I was 7, and that was 95, 96 season, and the Knicks were good. They were always making the second round of the playoffs, and I'd watch what my dad watched. We had MSG. We didn't have the channel that covered the Nets, so almost all that. If I was going to watch basketball, it was either going to be Knicks games or the NBA and NBC or something like that. So I happened to be, happenstance, good fortune, but a true Knicks fan. I still follow the team, even though since 2001, it hasn't really been the best times. I mean, there was the Donnie Walsh years, which, was great to clear the cap, and then a couple of playoff appearances in beginning of last decade with the trade for Melo, Winsanity, a second round playoff in 2013. I haven't sniffed the playoffs since. So this is really unexpected this year. The Knicks have played really good team ball. They're playing hard for Tibbs. And yeah, a lot of Knicks fans are proud because, true New York basketball is defensive, gritty. It's ugly. It's hard nosed. It's not beautiful passing. I mean, maybe if you're if you grew up in the 60s and 70s, it is, but the Knicks I grew up on were always defensive monsters, and this has that kind of pedigree.
I know you went through the whole chronology of being a Knicks fan, but to you, what is the biggest standout moment? 94? Was it 01? Was it Linsanity?
None of the above. It was a regular season game. I was 7 years old, and this was the 95-96 season. The Knicks were playing the 95-96 Bulls, who were 72-10, of course. It was one of those NBA and NBC Saturday games, and I remember it like it was yesterday. The Knicks destroyed the Bulls. The Bulls had the best season of NBA history. They won the title. But I'm sure if you can ask Michael Jordan what game sticks out that he's pissed off most from that year, it's this game. They lost 104-72, something in that area. They got destroyed. Derek Harper went out of his mind in the second half, shooting threes for the Knicks. And I think the Bulls were wearing their black uniforms. So, I remember seeing this image of Jordan walking off the court, and I'm a 7-year-old. I'm going crazy. I don't care if the Knicks ever won a championship. And now I regret saying that. But that to me was the Knicks championship because they played the best team on the planet, maybe the best team ever in NBA history, and absolutely destroyed them. And I know there's the 99 Knicks, there's the Allen Houston shot, there's there's the 4-point play by Larry Johnson. I was too young for 94, so I've only seen it in retrospect. But I've got to say that is the hands down the greatest Knicks game. I think until the Knicks win a championship, nothing's going to supersede that.
And I always think of Derek Harper, aside from his days in the Mavericks, he was a Bulls killer. In the 94 playoffs, he was a Bulls killer, more so than Starks, because I just think of the dagger that he hit and the steals. And, I think he was the main guy they put that hand-checking rule on because he was so good at it.
And I think him and JoJo White got to a scrum, in that 94 playoffs. You probably saw a couple seconds of that footage during the Last Dance last year, but Derek Harper, man, he was he was a veteran. He was on his last legs, but he gave everything he had for the Knicks.
Expectations going into the season.
I wish I could say I thought that this team would gel and play as well. No, I thought this would be another 30-win season. I thought this would be a team that couldn't sniff playoffs, let alone a winning record. I didn't even think they had a shot at the play-in if they were going top 10 for playoffs. Honestly, I was a little afraid of Tibbs becoming the coach because of how he outstayed his welcome in both Chicago and Minnesota. Eventually, maybe he's grown as a coach, to change his style. And I love defense. I thought Mike Woodson got a raw deal being fired from the Knicks after 2014. And they've, had a couple of cycling some coaches. I think Jeff Hornacek, David Fizdale. I'm sure I'm missing some in between, but the Knicks really have been rudderless, and they have an identity now, which is defense. And one of the free agent deals I thought last year, which is complete garbage. I really was mad when the Knicks whiffed on KD and Kyrie, and they got Julius Randle. It's like Julius Randle for 3 years. Like it seems like they're giving like $20 million a year for nothing or something like that. And now it's like a bargain basement deal the way he's played. I mean, he's like the Knicks' first true all-star in years. And, it's funny, RJ Barrett was supposed to be the savior of the team with the number 3 pick last year, and he still has to find his place. And it's amazing that in spite of him still developing, that they're where they are right now, which is awesome.
What is the most unique team-related memorabilia or clothing that you have?
So I do have my Charles Oakley jersey, respect to Oak. Wasn't signed or anything, but I do have a Walt Frazier hat over here because Clyde used to do the broadcast for Knicks, and he still does the Knicks game for MSG. So you get before the games. The nice part when Knicks were sucking in the early 2000s and late 2000s is that tickets were decently cheap, like $20, $30 for a ticket for a matinee game, and you can go down by the court. And Frazier, if you saw his number, or if you saw that you're a true fan or something, he would sign something. So I've got this, but I think the funnest one is Knicks Nets game about 10 years ago when the Nets were still playing in Newark. This is right before they left for Barclays Center, so like maybe 2011. And I was a civil engineering student, and I went to school in Newark, so the arena was like walkable distance. So for the game, my friend and I, we took a picture of Clyde Frazier, and we put it on this large 24 by 36 plotter, and we printed it out. So it said like swishing and dishing for the perimeter with Clyde Frazier's picture. And I remember we both went down just to see for fun if he'd see the sign, he'd sign it. And then as security was whiffing off people, they were like, we got to go. He saw the sign and he was like, bring him down. So I've got like a picture of me and Clyde with the sign. So I took the picture. My friend got the sign. So I was like, you can have the sign. I'll take the picture.
Was there a point in the season that you were sure that the Knicks were making the playoffs?
I would say that 9-game winning streak, I guess it was April, they just started killing it. It's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, they were killing it. And I really thought that's when they really went above like 500. Casually watching the Knicks at the beginning of the season, they weren't even on national TV. So I could never really watch them from DC. And, when they were hovering at 500 at the All-Star break, a lot of critics or, people from the team were saying the Knicks can't survive their back half of the schedule, which is much more difficult. And then lo and behold, the Knicks have really been a killer. They're still middle of the road, but now that they're the team that can beat losing teams, you expect the Knicks to beat losing teams. And the Knicks have given Brooklyn a run at their money on the head-to-head games. They've only lost by 1 or 2 possessions. So the Knicks are in almost every game. They haven't been blown out, really. I think they got blown out the other day against Phoenix, but I caught a little bit of the Clippers game yesterday, and the Knicks were going head-to-head, and I love that. Julius Randle's been playing great. Derrick Rose has reinvented his game. Like I think it's like he's like turned back the clock, and I don't know, maybe him and Tibbs have unfinished business after that injury in 2012. So,
was there a time you felt like the Knicks' playoff chances were in doubt?
I mean, I thought they were in doubt pretty much until that winning streak. But I mean, they look like, I think if they lost all their games, they'd still make the play-in game. I think if they just win one more game, they qualify as a top 6 seed and they avoid the play-in games. So I'm comfortable about the Knicks. I think they're playing the Lakers tomorrow. They got Spurs, Charlotte, Boston, and I've got a good feeling they're going to be all right. Like they got their last 3 games are at home. So I think the Knicks. I think the Knicks really have weathered storms. So I'm really excited, and I hope they finish strong. It would be great if they can have 40 wins at least this season in a shortened season.
What team do you think the Knicks match up the best with in the Eastern Conference?
To be honest, I haven't really thought about that too much. I was thinking Atlanta with Trae Young, but I honestly think the Knicks are just going to be good on teams that don't have depth, like teams that can wear down, like older teams that have mileage. And the Knicks seem to be young and defensive, and that might take a lot out of defenders who don't have a lot offensive players who don't have a lot of quickness, because that's where the Knicks can really keep their defense, serve up a tenacious D, as Marv Albert once said. I'm just happy if they make the playoffs. Like I couldn't care less if they got blown out in the first round. I think the fact that this is a reclamation project that's ahead of schedule. The Knicks are what the Nets were 2 years ago. Like I really think that you can take a parallel between that 2019 Nets team, the 2021 Knicks because, the Nets didn't really have any star players. They had like Karis LeVert. They did not really have anybody, but that team was gritty. They played hard I think Kenny Atkinson was the coach at the time. And then they served their way into like maybe 42, 44 wins, and they made the playoffs, and they played hard, and, they maxed out their talent. And that was, I honestly think that kind of season convinced KD and Kyrie to get the free agents to come to Brooklyn again, because they saw that, the Nets, what they went through, like they made horrible trades with Boston with all these draft picks, and they were able to, come back from that. And I think that's the blueprint the Knicks are going on, which is, play hard and be sensible with their salary cap. The Knicks do have a pretty good salary cap. So honestly, they're playing with house money this year. Whatever happens is great. If they can go in the playoffs, as a 4 seed, that would be great. I think the Knicks would be playing if the season ended today, I think they would be playing the Hawks. So I think that would be a fun series. But, Miami, Boston, looks like those are the teams. I think the team that they kind of want to avoid maybe the Wizards, because they might be the hottest team besides the Knicks. Like the Wizards have been killing it. And it would be kind of fun to see Russell Westbrook play against the Knicks if that happens.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the team that you didn't want to see in the playoffs. Is it Milwaukee? Is it the Nets? Is it the Sixers? Is this one of those teams in the East that scares you as a Knicks fan?
Well, I would say the Sixers. If Embiid can play the whole way, I think they're the most complete team. And I think the Nets. The only reason I don't see the Nets as big is, besides the injuries, the Knicks have played so well against them head to head. I mean, the Knicks have lost by 1 or 2 possessions. Like, that's a lot of confidence. And as a New York Knicks football fan, I always go back to that 2007 season where they played the Patriots in like week 17. Nothing to play for. Both teams had a playoff spot, but Patriots were playing for their perfect season. The Giants played hard and they lost a close game, but they developed that confidence that, hey, we can beat them. We got close. And lo and behold, a few weeks later in the Super Bowl, the Giants came through. So I really think there's something about the Knicks' recent experience with the Nets. So, and Milwaukee, I think Milwaukee has the biggest pressure of any team, more than the Nets, because, Giannis, this is year 3, and I feel it is championship or bust for them. So the Knicks are playing with house money. They have no pressure. So, but I do think that's like thinking too far along the lines. I think the Knicks are realistically, the first round's going to be tough. And if they can make it to the second round, amazing. But I think Philly would probably be the team of the upper echelon NBA teams that would be really, really tough to play.
Looking at the NBA Finals, who's coming from the East, who's coming from the West, and who wins, and in how many games?
Oof. I've got the Sixers and the Clippers, and I'm sure, I haven't followed enough of the NBA this year to like really go, and I'm really impressed with the Phoenix Suns. I think that's awesome how I think they're like the number 1 team in the conference right now, or like Jazz are. But I see the Clippers. I see load management. I think the Clippers will in the end they'll make their way through. So and then Denver's out without Jamal Murray, and Phoenix they haven't really been there. I mean, they have Chris Paul, and I would love for Chris Paul to finally make an NBA final. So I think I'm rooting for Phoenix, to be honest, but I think it's the Clippers. I think now, they've been there enough. I think it's their time. They're kind of like the Washington Capitals. Like, they've been there so close, knocking at the door. I think this is a year they finally, open the door and get into the NBA finals, or at least the conference finals finally. In the East, I think it's the Sixers. I think this is their year, and I think that they played really solid ball. I think Joel Embiid's played at an NBA level, and the whole key is whether or not Joel Embiid can stay, has the stamina to get through. I think he does right now. But we'll see in the playoffs. He usually has been worn down by the second round. But I'm going to go with the Sixers and the Clippers. And I'll say 6 games. I always think 6 games is a good series. 5 if it's close, but usually 6 games. I'll go with 6. I'm just going to go with the Clippers. I know they have the stars and stuff, but I feel like that would be so good for the Clippers fans. I've got a friend who's loved the Clippers since, the horrible days, in the 90s and, things of that nature. Like he went through that, I'm sure he has a Corey Maggette jersey somewhere in his closet, so, like Ken Norman, that kind of stuff. So it would be great for Clips fans. I'm sure Billy Crystal, he seems like he's a true Clippers fan, things like that. But if the Sixers win, that'd be great. But I see the champion being someone who has not won lately. So that'll be refreshing. I mean, NBA has always been dynasties, but I kind of enjoy it. I kind of enjoy seeing a new team make it to the top.
Yeah, honestly, since 75, it's been like the same 11 teams that have won titles, I think. Golden State, Chicago.
Yeah, Toronto.
Knicks. Oh yeah, Toronto. So 12. Yeah, Miami.
Unfortunately, the Knicks haven't won since '73, so it's going to be 50 years pretty soon. But yeah, it would be nice to see a new team crash the party. I guess like the Warriors kind of did that, before they went Super Saiyan with Kevin Durant. Those first two times they went to the NBA Finals earlier this past decade. But yeah, NBA is like that one sport. I think it's like of all the sports, it's always a dynasty. It's never like It's never like, different champions in 10 different years like baseball seems to be now.
As we wrap this up, do you have anyone you want to give any shout outs to, anything you're working on? I know you have a channel on YouTube where you talk about hats as well. And I don't know if you've done that recently, but
I'm really bad. I've not done cap of the week. I was gone for a little bit, so I've got more caps. So yeah, I should do cap of the week on YouTube. So it was supposed to be once a week I would do a cap, and I've got about 60 out there, and I've got many more to go. But it's just a small 3-minute clip of the cap, the era, the team played, when the cap was made, things like that. It's little tidbits. There's a cap collector community I found out, which is pretty cool. So I thought I had a lot of hats, but thankfully I don't have nowhere close to as many hats as some people have. So been doing well with that, but. Yeah, otherwise, it hasn't been much. It's just like working my day job and kind of just excited that, our country is starting to open up again and, people are vaccinated. So I'm kind of happy about that. And the Knicks, I'm happy. I'm actually going to be able to wear this jersey, hopefully, in the playoffs and watch some playoff games. So I'm very excited about that.